Hey everybody, and welcome back to this conversation topic video. And in this video, we're just going to talk about business intelligence careers because after all, most people who are taking this power pivoting course are presumably pivoting from a non-data career into some sort of business intelligence role, or at least that's the goal. That said, while you may have picked business intelligence or some sort of BI analytics or related field that uses data and data visualization as your new career path, maybe you're also still looking for guidance on like what a BI career means, what the longer term forecast is for a BI career, and maybe some things to look out for in sort of evaluating different BI jobs and sort of weighing your options if and when you get your first offer for a BI role. So in this video, I'm just going to run through, some questions related to sort of a business intelligence career and at least weigh in with my experience and hopefully give you some food for thought as you make it through the different steps in your BI career, from landing your first job, even to figuring out, okay, I've got my first job, I've got a year or two of experience now, what comes next? So let's go ahead and dive into these questions. The first question that I thought might be useful is, what are some roles that I should look for when I'm hunting for my first BI role? And the first thing that immediately came to mind when I thought of this question was, honestly, searching for specific BI roles and titles here in the year 2023 can be kind of a path to disappointment in my experience. And the reason for that is that so many companies, when they're trying to fill business intelligence roles, either they don't know what to call those roles, they don't know what to label them, they've never even thought about those roles, or they're looking for business intelligence skills like Power BI or Tableau, but they're categorizing them under sort of related fields. One theme of this course that I've touched on several times is how much business intelligence skills and other data skills can overlap and kind of, confusing what it even means to work in the BI industry. There are people who are tried and true data scientists who work frequently with data visualization tools like Power BI. And there are people who, like myself, who work almost entirely in the business intelligence industry who occasionally have to dip their toes into data architecture or data science waters. Like I said, I have been working in business intelligence for almost a decade, and I still have worked almost entirely on data science teams in my career, with the exception of maybe a year or two that I was not technically on a data science team. So with that in mind, I would highly encourage you, when you're looking for your first BI roles, to focus on keywords like what I've listed here, rather than looking for the specific titles themselves, and keep an open mind. You might want to frame your job search on company portals and on LinkedIn, and just when you're searching your web browser for different roles, use keywords like analyst, data visualization, reporting, and all kinds of different combinations of words that have business intelligence in front of them, like BI engineer, BI specialist, BI developer, BI consultant. You might kind of expand your net that way. And also, when you're in job portals or career portals for different companies, don't be afraid to actually search for the specific technology that you're hoping to use or the skill that you're hoping to apply. Search for phrases like Power BI, search for Tableau, search for, SQL if that's what you're hoping to use starting out in your BI career, or if you just want to see all roles that have that. Focus on searching for keywords, because honestly, it can be a total crapshoot what companies label their BI roles. There's not a lot of consistency. Almost every company that I've worked for or that I've interviewed with has had a variety of different concepts or different titles that they use for very, very similar roles that regularly work with BI tools. And in fact, I was even, at my current employer, I interviewed for one role and was hired into another, which is how I ended up working as a business intelligence engineer in the first place, as opposed to an analyst or a specialist or a developer. The next question that I wanted to spend some time talking about is, what do BI job descriptions look like, and how do I know that I'm a good fit? So My thinking on this is, first, let's start just by talking about BI job descriptions. If you're very new, just sort of applying for your first business intelligence roles, a lot of BI jobs, the descriptions are going to start with something about the company, possibly the area that you are going to be working in, and sort of who your main business partners or customers are in the area where you're going to be working as a business intelligence professional. If you are applying for a job with a smaller company, they may have sort of a one-size-fits-all BI team where all of their BI engineers and their data professionals sort of serve the entire company. In my first role, when I worked for a company that was fewer than 1,000 people, as a BI professional, I served almost the entire company. At various points in times, I was working with sales data, HR data, finance data, customer service data, engineering data. I touched almost every part of our company that generated data. At larger companies, if you work for a company that is tens of thousands of employees like I do now, it's not uncommon for you to see job descriptions that identify a specific area within the company where you might be working, or a specific department with whom you might be serving, or you might be a BI analyst or engineer or other business intelligence professional aligned to a specific product within the business. So just know that job descriptions in business intelligence can usually give you a good idea of sort of the area within a company where you'll be working. As far as the rest of the job descriptions, obviously one of the major focuses is trying to identify which candidates have the right skills. And that's where I'm starting to transition into, how do you know if you're a good fit? Most job descriptions are going to list sort of the primary skills or technologies that are sort of a prerequisite for being hired into that job. Things like you have to have some mastery or at least advanced knowledge of things like SQL, Excel, maybe one data visualization tool like Power BI or Tableau. And if you check off, roughly, 70% of the items that are listed in that job description or those skills, then you're probably a good fit. My piece of advice here is definitely, as you're starting your job search and as you're starting to apply for business intelligence jobs, don't feel like you have to have 100% of the bullets that are listed on that job description before you start applying. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get a call back for an interview on everything, even if you have 70%. There may be some jobs that you're applying for where they were serious about having someone who is 100% qualified on paper or who does check off all of those boxes. But I routinely apply for jobs where I meet maybe 70, 80% of the criteria. And my reasoning for that is that it's not uncommon for companies to describe their ideal or hopeful candidate as opposed to the candidate that they would be willing to settle for. Obviously, people who work in business intelligence or data science in 2023 and who have these data jobs, they tend to be some of the highest paid employees at a lot of companies. We demand top salary, and the market for our talents is very, very competitive today, as it is for a lot of tech-enabled jobs. So a lot of companies are usually looking to kind of double dip. They would love if they could get somebody who is not only a business intelligence specialist, but who has a little bit of the data science acumen or project management skills or broader business experience or other interdisciplinary skills that they might be able to leverage in other areas. Most businesses want to get as much bang for their buck, so to speak, as they can. But that said, the more skills and technical requirements that they have on these job descriptions, obviously the harder it becomes to find these candidates. They're like unicorns. So finding somebody who has all of these skills and also falls within the sweet spot of whatever salary range the employer has in mind for that role can drag out some of these job searches. So you might find yourself in a situation where a candidate has declined a role, or a company has already gone through 2 or 3 offers with candidates. Maybe they're trying to lowball people who have more of these skills that they're looking for, and discover that, okay, maybe it's time to settle for someone who doesn't check all of the boxes, but who we're willing to grow. So just know that you shouldn't always wait to have 100% of all the boxes checked. That's usually a best case scenario, and it hasn't stopped me from getting callbacks in the past, even though, of course, there are no guarantees and every single job requisition is different. The next question is, are there any red flags that I should watch out for? And red flags are just means, is there anything that I should be cautious about when I'm considering a BI role, or if I'm considering accepting an offer on a specific role? And there are a whole bunch of different red flags that kind of popped out to me through the interviews that I've participated in and the interviews that I have conducted that I've had to be mindful of. There are all kinds of little tells that can make you ask yourself whether or not the company with whom you're interviewing has a strong culture, or if they have, very clear plans for this role, or if there's anything else, that's, possibly an indicator that something's not quite right beneath the surface. One of the first things to look out for, in my opinion, in a role description is whether or not the company is looking for sort of a jack of all trades. I have seen job descriptions that wanted everything. They wanted a role to do the work of 5 or 6 people. They wanted someone who's a master of Power BI. They wanted someone who's a master of SQL, who can build their entire data environment, who knows Azure, who knows data science and machine learning inside and out, who has an advanced degree in statistics, who has a PhD. It can just get absolutely ridiculous. And even if you do feel, comfortable that you are that unicorn candidate, in which case it's totally fine for you to apply, be my guest, but just know that, that company may be looking for this role to do the work of 3 or 4 people. And so I would hope that, if you are applying for such a role, that the compensation is in accord with that extra amount of work or responsibility. I'm always reminded of a time that I applied for a job that was kind of an everything but the kitchen sink position, where they wanted this person to basically start up their data architecture, implement Power BI as a business intelligence tool, and run like data modeling and statistics and all kinds of AI capabilities. And when I asked them what salary they had in mind for this position, thinking that it could be a huge step up from where I was at the time when I applied for that role, the salary that they had in mind was half what I was currently making at that time. In other words, the company had no idea what the market was like or what skills they were requesting just for a single role. That particular company had not done its research, and to my knowledge, to this date, they probably still haven't found someone. But some other things that you might want to keep in mind as you're sort of weighing your options with a specific role is if there's any way that you can sort of get an indication as to whether or not the position that you're interviewing for has been repeatedly turned over. Oftentimes when I'm in interviews, one of the questions that I'll ask is whether or not I'm replacing someone who left the team, or if the position that I'm interviewing for is a brand new role. You might be limited in how much real transparency and information you can get, but any background that kind of indicates whether or not the person who left that role was extremely unhappy or overworked, or maybe they were the problem and the team that's behind is now in a much better situation without them, obviously just gives you a little bit more insight into whether or not you'll be happy in that role. I would also say be on the lookout for roles and recruiters, any position that just refuses to disclose any kind of salary range, or who completely tries to obscure that part of the process. I think it's unrealistic to tell you that you should expect every job that you interview for that company to be 100% transparent on their salary. That's probably wishful thinking. But even if they can't even give you a broad range, then you need to ask yourself, whether or not a company that is that opaque is a place where you want to work. And also know that then you're kind of hoping for the best. You're hoping that if you make it through all of the interviews and if you invest all of that time, that you won't get all the way to the offer before you find out that their salary is, far below what you were expecting for. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're disappointed on your first day on the job because their salary came in way under what you were hoping for. I would also say, and this is also something from my personal experience that can be sort of awkward, is be on the lookout for situations where the hiring team or the interview panel seems fairly uninterested or unengaged or unprepared for your interview. I have been on panels and I have been interviewed by panels where the people who were supposed to be engaging the candidate and interviewing came in unprepared. They didn't have, any clear questions identified to ask that candidate going into the interview. So they refused to come on camera for some of the virtual interviews, and you could tell that they just weren't physically or emotionally present, and in some instances, maybe even multitasking on work items while they were supposed to be interviewing the candidate. And if someone ever tries to pull that on you in an interview, that's just another point to sort of ask yourself whether or not that's ultimately the team that you see yourself working on, or if those are people that you see yourself working alongside. Just food for thought there. Next, when will I know that I'm ready for a BI interview? And honestly, my rule of thumb here, if you're someone who is taking a whole bunch of BI courses and data courses and SQL courses, and if you're kind of drinking from the proverbial fire hose right now and have been for months trying to learn everything you can, and you haven't started interviewing yet, or even applying for roles yet, I think that you're ready when the idea of talking about business intelligence concepts and data concepts doesn't terrify you. Once you get to the point where you feel like you are genuinely interested in sort of talking about your knowledge, everything that you've learned, and you have a strong portfolio or example of work, or some sort of body of work to talk about and sort of showcase in your interviews that you can't wait to talk about, then you're ready. I would say don't wait too long. Go ahead and start seeing what bites you might get. If you're getting interviews, that means that there's something right with your resume. So, maybe that's not the issue anymore. And if you get into interviews and you feel like, you're just completely unprepared for the questions, then that in and of itself is really useful feedback for you and can kind of, redirect you to areas where maybe you need to brush up on your studying. But, at the end of the day, after an interview is finished, don't dwell too much on what went right, what went wrong. You never know what the impression you left behind really was until they either don't call back or they call back and made you an offer. I have had interviews where I was in my head throughout the entire interview thinking, oh man, I could have given a better answer on that, or I wish that this had gone better. Only to have, offers come back and have the hiring panel say that they thought that I handled all the questions, really well, that the questions were deliberately very difficult and trying to bring me outside of my comfort zone. It's really hard to sort of anticipate what your interview panel will be like. At the end of the day, the only person in any sort of interview that you can control is yourself. So, try to make sure that you're in a good headspace where you're positive and you know as much as you feel like you can know for that interview. And then focus on just, showcasing your work, telling clear stories, and giving very specific examples of your experience related to whatever questions or topics they ask you. But at the end of the day, just take their questions, and if you don't know them, it's fine. I admit all the time that I don't know the answer to something in an interview, or sometimes I'll ask for 60 seconds to 90 seconds to think about my response to a question before I dive right into it. And no one has ever had a problem with that. And in fact, I actually think that it's really served me well in most of my personal interview experiences. Next, how do I talk about the offer? And so, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, getting into the salary discussions can be, more of a stressful part of finding your first BI role. Nobody likes to be lowballed in their offer, and it can be really, really frustrating when you're applying for positions and the company won't disclose the salary or even give you a range of what the company has in mind for the specific role. And it is absolutely possible that if you list a salary requirement on a job description that you will price yourself out of that role. I know it's happened to me, and unfortunately, I see people throw out salaries that are way beyond the range that I'm looking at for positions that I'm hiring. And it has been a reason why I haven't been able to have interviews with some candidates. But as far as how do you talk about the offer, do everything that you can to try to get some kind of range, in the early steps of an interview. Like usually your first call on a lot of these roles will be from a recruiter, just going through some screening questions, trying to kind of get a gauge as to whether or not you're a good fit to, then go on and talk to the actual hiring committee or an interview panel or go into like a more technical interview. If you can, get some sense as to whether or not your salary expectations fall within that range, then great. Then it drastically reduces the chances or possibility that you're going to be really disappointed with the offer that they end up bringing to the table later on in the interview stages. But that said, it kind of falls on you to make sure that you have done a lot of research on the front end to sort of price out entry-level business intelligence roles in your region to see what people are making at similar-sized companies, what sorts of benefits or bonuses or other perks tend to be included, and to research the culture of the company where you are applying to. As far as an overall offer or package, I think that some things you need to keep in mind are, what sort of PTO package does the company offer? What is their work-life balance? What is the company culture like? Are the overall the employees who work there very happy and satisfied with how the company is operated? Things like that can often be worth their weight in gold. It's not all money by any means, but I would highly recommend that you try to put yourself in a situation where you don't have to settle for something that is radically less than what you need to be happy. And as far as what that number is, it's obviously going to vary based on your specific life needs. In the area, where you live, for example, people on the West Coast often require much higher salaries just due to the cost of living than people who live in my state of Kentucky, where the cost of living is much lower. If you have expectations that you're going to walk into your first business intelligence role and be a millionaire, then maybe you need to lower your expectations and do a little bit more research. But if you settle on a number that you think you would be happy with and that you're confident is fair given the compensation that you're seeing elsewhere on the internet in your area, then that's where I would start. Don't lowball yourself or price yourself into a position where you're just fundamentally really unhappy with the salary, because I guarantee that within a couple of months of starting that job, once the honeymoon period sort of runs its course, you're probably going to be job hunting again so that you can get yourself to the salary that you thought you were going to be happy with. And it's also okay to settle a little bit at the lower end of what you think that you would need to be happy for your first position, just to sort of get some experience on your resume, brush up on your skills, get some more applied work and applied projects, so that then after a couple of years, you feel a little bit more justified leaving, and you can probably negotiate for a much stronger package in your second business intelligence job. And this conversation kind of takes us into the next question, and that is, how long should I stay in an entry-level role? And I mean, obviously this can vary for everybody. It can vary based on the strength of the portfolio of work that you're able to establish in your first BI role. It can vary based on sort of the breadth and extensiveness of the projects that you work on. One thing that I was really grateful for in my first business intelligence job was that within about 6 months, I was already leading BI projects as far as like organizing the requirements, deploying the BI tools. Because of the nature of my team at that time, I had to pretty much learn how to lead these projects right away. And I think that was a big reason why within just a couple of years of finding my first BI job, I was managing an analytics and business intelligence team. So it might vary for you, but my rule of thumb is I would say after you have been in an entry-level business intelligence job for about 2 years, you have probably developed enough experience and work history to start at least putting your resume out there or searching within your company for that next role. I know that some people that I talk to think you have to have like a decade or 15 years of experience to be a senior business intelligence person, but I managed to landed my first senior BI role within just a few years of working in business intelligence, because I had pretty well nailed down a lot of the fundamental skills that I needed. I also think that after you get about 2 years of experience in business intelligence, and this is again just really based on my experience and the experience of multiple other people that I've talked to here in Kentucky at least, After you get a couple of years of experience in BI and data science and analytics on your resume, you might notice that doors just start opening for you. As I said, business intelligence as an industry is very, very competitive, and there are more BI professionals in some areas than there are in others. Here in the region where I live in the United States, there often aren't enough business intelligence or analytics professionals to go around. And so after a couple of years, I noticed that just recruiters and headhunters were reaching out to me regularly on LinkedIn, asking if I was interested in roles or trying to get a conversation going with me. Some of those recruiters, are kind of just fishing for any candidate who they think might be a fit, hoping that they can kind of get their foot in the door with that company. But it's it is still nice when you've been through what I've been through and through what a lot of career pivoters have been through, where it just seems like you're never going to get that first business intelligence job, and then after a couple of years, you have 8 to 10 recruiters a week reaching out to you about other positions. It is a very liberating feeling and definitely takes some of the stress out. And it also shows you that you're doing a lot right, and that your resume is finally starting to look so attractive that you don't even have to send it out there. People just find it and come to you. So hopefully after a couple of years in your first BI role, you'll be ready to kind of grow or move into something with more responsibilities. The next one is an important question, and that is what separates a good BI job from a bad BI job? And my answer on this is emphatic. What separates a good BI job from a bad BI job are the people around you. At almost any company, doing the work of a business intelligence professional means dealing with the frustrations and stress of dealing with the company's data. And figuring out how the data is made at your company, figuring out where all of the data lives, cleaning the data, understanding the data, trying to figure out what your company really wants you to do with data, getting frustrated with your company when they want one thing but the data say something else. In any sort of data or tech job, there's going to be the frustrations of having to navigate a company's data infrastructure, dealing with things like lag, dealing with things like calculations. It's almost unavoidable. I had frustrations at my first business intelligence job that are completely different from the frustrations that I have today. But the reason that I love my current employer and where I work today is the culture. My current employer is very accommodating and patient when it comes to deadlines. Their expectations are for any given business intelligence project are grounded in reality. And I'm surrounded by brilliant data scientists and business experts and project managers who know the company inside out and can give me the direction that I need when I need it. And there's definitely a sense of community and collaboration on any given project that sort of makes the frustrations that I deal with easier to stomach. You can work for an exceptional company and deal with a lot of the same frustrations that you would deal with at a company that has a really toxic or terrible work environment. And one is drastically better than the other because at least you're doing that frustrating work alongside people that you really like and people who can make you better at what you do. And as you become better, hopefully you can even help, the people around you learn a little bit more about business intelligence and sort of grow everyone up at the same time. So absolutely, the main thing that separates a good BI job from a bad one are the people that you're doing it alongside. The next question is, what skills will help me advance to the next BI position? And here I have something really, really surprising to say, and that is, if you think that the skills that are going to help you advance from your first business intelligence role into your next business intelligence role are technical skills like Python or SQL or ChatGPT or something like that, I've got news for you. In my experience, what really sets apart an entry-level business intelligence person from someone who is a little bit more senior is not technical at all. It's the soft skills. It's the ability to communicate and articulate the reasoning behind business intelligence projects and data and sort of articulate connections between what a business intelligence tool is visualizing and what is actually happening in the business. Being able to sort of communicate and be that translator between what's happening in the business and what's happening in the data, and how they kind of relate and help your business decision makers or customers make the better and more informed decisions that they're trying to make. That's kind of the end game of business intelligence. That is what is going to get you promoted. Understanding your specific business area inside and out, sort of being curious and learning everything that you can about the area where you work and the sorts of data products that your area uses and what they mean. And being able to tell compelling stories and show sort of change over time or surface things that are really interesting in that data. That is what is really going to help you throughout your business intelligence career. The technical skills sort of take care of themselves with more experience and more projects and more use cases, but there's simply no substitute for being able to engage your business partners and sort of form relationships with them, and ultimately, kind of carry that interpersonal and communication dynamic into your work to sort of elevate it so that your business intelligence tools aren't just clickable data tools. They really are informing the strategic direction of the business area where you work, and maybe even your employer as a whole. Next, what do I do later if I decide that a BI career is not for me? And I thought that this was a really interesting question. And I will say that by and large, I haven't talked to a whole lot of people who work in business intelligence who ended up going somewhere else permanently. I have talked to some people who started working in business intelligence and maybe did it for a few years and then went somewhere else and came back to business intelligence because they needed a break, or they needed to get a little bit more hands-on experience with the business or with their employer, and they just needed kind of a change of pace, or they needed to sort of grow their skill sets outside of business intelligence in order to come back and be stronger. But you shouldn't ever feel like just because you have entered a business intelligence career that you have to do that forever. I go through peaks and valleys with my career the same way that anyone else does, I would imagine. I've been doing business intelligence for close to a decade now, and I routinely, fall in and out of love with the work that I'm doing based on the projects that I have. If I have multiple intense, stressful projects that I don't find personally enriching, of course I go through periods of burnout where I'm like, I never want to do business intelligence again. But all it takes is one good project and one good business partner and one more success story before I'm right back on the wagon. But that said, if you do find yourself in a situation where you fall out of love with your business intelligence career, or you determine that you've made a huge mistake for you and your life goals, there's absolutely no reason why you can't transition a lot of the skills that you developed in business intelligence to something else. And that's just because nowadays, more than ever, data touches almost every part of a company. Even people who are not working in business intelligence or who don't consider themselves data professionals or analysts have to get data from somewhere so that they know that they're making the most informed decisions that they can for the part of the business that they're responsible for or where they work. So there are all kinds of ways that you can transition into a non-BI role and still be a rock star because of the skills that you're bringing with you, such as the ability to query data, the ability to visualize data, the ability to tell compelling stories with data that are going to help win the buy-in of your superiors and the executives of your company, who are ultimately responsible for the decisions that determine the strategic direction of that company. So just know that a business intelligence career in 2023 has never been more relevant, and the skill sets have never been more important, even for people who work with data maybe less than those data professionals who are immersed in it for hours every single day. I have no doubt that tomorrow, if I decided that I didn't want to do business intelligence, I could easily find some other area where my experience in BI would really, really serve me well and serve as a really strong negotiating point for me entering that new role and that new career.